So this is something that we'll want to be able to extend any of our CSS. So we'll want to include this placeholder class somewhere where everything can get to it, somewhere that isn't tied in with any particular component. So if we look at our current structure, I'm going to go to the SASS folder inside of our base directory. We have a base partial that could be used for this. It could also be loosely interpreted as a variable, but I think it might make more sense to actually create a new partial for this for any global layout styles we need to add. So I'm going to create a new file here called layout. Again, it's going to have the underscore and the .scss. And let's add it in our styles.scss file. We'll put it right above our play and below our base. Let's save this. And now I'll open our layout.scss file. And let's create a placeholder class. And it's suggested in the SMACS organizational rules to use the L- prefix for anything that has to do with layout. Now there isn't specific rules for using placeholders in SASS, but I like the idea of using it here to make it clear that it has to do with layout. So let's call this L- full width. And within it, we'll set the width to 960 pixels. And I think we want to leave this at pixels instead of using a relative measurement to have more control over our layout. And we'll set the margin left to auto and the margin right to auto. And let's also add padding. So we'll do 0 for the top and bottom and 20 pixels for the right and left. Okay, so this really is only part of the picture. This will come into play when the browser is 960 plus 20 plus 20, so 1000 pixels wide or greater. But we also need to decide what's going to happen if the browser is smaller than that. So we talked about this earlier briefly, but one idea is to simply stretch the element across the browser so it becomes fluid instead of fixed. Right now it's fluid just with some extra padding, so as we adjust the width, it just adjusts. So let's take that approach here. So in this definition, we need to add a media query. Now we'll stick with using min width, which will allow us to add styles as the browser gets bigger instead of the other way around. So in this case, our default styles before we get to 960 pixels will be having our padding plus a width of 100%. Or what we can also do is do auto. Auto ends up working better with margins and padding. So whenever we're going to do 100% on a block element, we'll use auto instead from here on out. And I'll move the padding below this. And then let's add a breakpoint. We can take a look at the site footer partial for an example of the syntax again. So it's include, breakpoint, and then the width. So we'll do include, breakpoint, and then the breakpoint is going to be the width here plus the padding to either side. So that will be 1000 pixels. And then we'll add a bracket, indent everything to include it in the breakpoint, and we'll save this. And now, in order to pull these styles in, we need to extend it inside of our hero section selector. So I'm going to open up the stacked hero section.scss. And again, we're going to remove the padding to the left and to the right. So we'll set this to 0 for now. And let's extend with the extend keyword, and we'll add L-full width. All right, let's save this, go back to the browser and see how this goes. I'll refresh. All right, so we can see that the width is 960 pixels. And if we drop this down, you can see that the width stays fixed and the padding to either side is decreasing. And then once we hit our 1000 pixels, it's a little hard to tell, but you can see that the stacked hero section ends up extending to either side, all the way across. Now, I kind of think that this border down here shouldn't extend all the way across, but should end where the padding ends. So instead of using padding, I think it might make sense to use margin instead. So I'm going to switch this right here to margin. I'll save it and refresh. And now we have a little bit of space here between the border and the edge of the browser. And now as we extend smaller, then everything kind of cascades. You can see as we lose the space for 3 of these across, it drops it down to 2 across.